Heal Your Shit is a podcast for anyone curious about why life throws us curveballs. We're all about digging into the connections between mind, body, and soul, but we keep it real. Because, let's be honest, being human can be one wild ride. Once you understand your shit, healing it becomes a whole lot easier. Hi, welcome to Heal Your Shit podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Laura.
And I'm Olof. So for me, I went to a space in my life where it was so much suffering that I just couldn't bear with it. So I basically had to choose between becoming a bitter old man or start healing my shit. So for me, that path went through a lot of different modalities, but what I work mostly with today is de-armoring and IFS and inner child healing in different ways. So I have sessions with couples or individual sessions, and I also hold workshops.
And I'm Laura, and I started this journey, I guess, because of my depression, and I worked through it. And thanks to that, I have a lot of insight. I became a coach, a trauma-informed coach. So I help people to spot traumas in their life and work deeper elsewhere, maybe during the armoring with you. So that's me. Welcome to our show.
Go.
Hello, welcome to our 5th episode of Heal Your Shit. And today we're going to talk about grief and Olof's personal story.
Yeah, welcome.
Hello.
So I remember how it was to be able to run. When I was running through the rapeseed fields in the setting sun, the feeling of strength in my legs, flexibility, my beating heart, and the sense of being free. The sense of just being able to do whatever I wanted, to go out and run 15 kilometers and run till the sweat stopped and there was just this salty surface on my body. And how the body was in a symphony with the pounding of the legs, the beating of the heart, the breath. But I also remember the feeling of falling, the sheer terror of realizing that there was nothing to stop me from falling 11 meters down into the floor. In 2011, in September, I was in a climbing accident, and I fell 11 meters during my last climb, straight down on a hard floor. And I broke my spine on the L3 vertebrae of the force, the sheer impact of landing, crushed my heels, and then crushed the vertebrae. So, and which paralyzed me. And that was what I would say my big journey into grief, of going from a very active life, being a boxer, Thai boxing, running, yoga, going to the gym, always being active, till a different life experience. And to accept that, I needed to go and dive deep into my grief and into my body and feeling the sense of loss, feeling the loss of perspective, feeling the loss of a lot of life. But it was also for me I realized, because I had a son at the time, my son was 7 months at the time, and it was after my first week as on daddy's leave. And so what happened is, what I also did was holding on to that relationship, to the relationship with my wife and the relationship with my son. So that was giving meaning and direction in my life. So, but I could also have a part of me was really striving to get well, to get back. And I could also feel that a part of me was just feeling worthless. And so I continued with that journey and always striving to get better, always training in more subtle ways, and always trying to improve my functionality. And that's a journey of itself. But the really big death for me was when I separated with the mother of Ebba, my son. And what came to my knowledge was that the relationship wasn't built on truth. And that as such brought me on such a deep journey of grieving and sense of losing control and losing the sense of meaning and direction. And really, I had nothing to hold on to, no concept to hold on to anymore. And the world was turned upside down. And that forced me into a deep journey of grieving, feeling, stopping, and starting my journey into self-caring, self-caretaking, how to regulate my nervous system, how to take care of this body in a more emotional way. Because earlier I'd just been running or punish myself to run. And then I had to dive into the more subtleties. And I think that's also a part of the spiritual journey. To realize, like, there's nothing to hold on to and there's nothing to achieve, but still show up and be humbled by life in that way. And for me, it was a lot about to start to sit a lot, just feeling in meditation and grieving and connecting with that sense of fright, with a sense of meaninglessness or worthlessness, and stay, because that's what I feel we have such a hard time with in these days. We tend to start running instead. We start to get busy instead of grieving. It's like, okay, this was a month ago, get over it. And I mean, for me, it's also about a lifelong journey exploring this. In a sense, losing like the capacity of my legs to run is a lifelong grief. And it can coexist with the gratefulness of the other gifts that I've been given. And that's just like, the dual perspective. The other day, a friend asked me if I was grateful for my accident. I was feeling into it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not there yet. I can be grateful for some parts of it, but I can't be grateful for the whole accident. But I can be grateful because it showed me what has become my life's path, and what I feel truly passionate about, and brought a depth into my being that I didn't have before. What I see is, without grief, without grieving, or without crying, we cannot get in touch with the laughter. If we suppress something, we can't choose to just suppress one aspect. It comes in pairs, it always comes in a dynamic.
So what was the most difficult thing in that process for you?
I think the most difficult thing was to let go of the concepts of what I thought I was holding on to. And it was just to see that that was just illusions. It was like made up in my mind. And I mean, that's how most of us live. And to stop, to see that, you know, there was just no energy left in me to grasp onto other concepts. So that in a way felt like, you know, going on backwards on a slide into complete darkness. But when you go deep enough into the darkness, you can see the lights, you know, like the stars is starting to shine way down in that hole. And to start, you know, instead of always being outward focused and running, to start really tuning into the sense of I am, and the sense of breathing, the sense of feeling, the sense of that it's okay, no matter what. I'm here, and I know I can be with intense emotions instead of, you know, either running around or seeking comfort from somebody else. And I mean, that's also important to be able to do that, because I always also have a tendency to shy away, but then I need to open up and be able to share grief and put words on it, and even put words on sensations in the body, and being actually interested in and letting those more subtle realms come up to surface and listen to the messages that they bring to us, and to have that space in life. So that's a gift that I've been given, that I have a lot of space and I have a lot of time to be able to process and to feel. Because what happens if we don't? Well, we shut down. We shut down with ourselves, and we shut down other people, and then we we go into a shutdown mode, and we often get like, you can feel like it's cut almost like from the neck, because you don't allow yourself, because grief also opens the heart. And for me, it was this grief was a process of starting to open the heart and just crying and sensing and feeling, but then also going down deeper into the body, going down to the belly and the hips and the sex, and just like, exploring those worlds.
So that was kind of a turning point in your life, whereas you mentioned in the beginning that you're running, doing, ignoring maybe parts of you. When this happened, you had no choice.
Exactly. So that's what tends to happen to the most of us, isn't it? Like we come to a choice point, or basically a point where we have no choice anymore, that we have to face our worst enemies. And for me, mine was the worthlessness, to sit and feel completely worthless. Like, being paralyzed and newly divorced, that was like my worst nightmare. And sit with that until it was okay. So I am in that, I'm with that. And how do I move in life from this?
How?
Yeah. And letting life show me,
Yeah.
And listening and following that guidance instead of this shattering monkey mind guidance. That's always about, control, and structure and running and trying to fix everything. So this mind always wants to create conditions so we feel safe. But in one sense, I'm always safe. In another sense, I'm never safe. And to really feel that. And I mean, to set up loving structures and stuff to support ourselves. But not being in that sympathetic nervous system running mode all the time. To try to hunt stuff to make me safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because I can imagine you were a lot in the doing energy. And then when you are unable to be in that, and you mention worthlessness, but also I believe it's even harder as you are a man. You're supposed to provide, to give, and then you're in a situation when you cannot do so much. So what did that make you feel like? Like, what was there? Anger? Was there?
Yeah, it was a lot of everything. A lot of anger too, of course. And I mean, I had to process a lot of anger towards my ex because she wasn't truthful. And it's like, oh my God. And then that surfaced a lot of things. And of course, that's also connected to my childhood patterns and things like that. And I mean, there was also this sense of like a part of me wanted to go into collapse and just die. And, you know, to be able to sort of give that a little warm tenderness, but also a little bit of push and direction, but in a very tender way. Because what happens is that we usually like punish those part of ourselves. And like, you need to continue striving and being too hard. Yeah. And for that was firstly just to stop, and just everything stopped. And then, you know, self-care taking, and then, okay, what now? Because, you know, I also feel like in a way when I was when you're in an accident, a severe, it's almost like your life gets like pushed down into zero, like you start like living like a very expanded life, like most of us has, and then it's like everything is shattered, and it becomes this little point, and then you have to start from there, and then sort of. But before you start to do the expansion, you got to do the healing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you tend to run into things that sort of reminds you, okay, you haven't done your healing, you need to stop.
And how that journey, because it's a hard journey to go through, and how did that affect you being a father?
See, I've seen a picture of him laying in my hospital bed, and he looks so like confused. What's this all about? And that's big sorrow to my heart, you know, because we want to give our children everything. But in a way, I also became a more tender and loving and present father to him. I mean, he was sitting in my lap in the wheelchair. So we had a lot of contact and picking raspberries. And, you know, so I felt I have become more tender, more available to him. And also after the divorce, I also had like a commitment that I'm going to be there for him every other week, 100%. Like to do my own inner work the other week and do, you know, the crying and whatever I had to do, the processing, and then show up for him, to support him and be a good father and not give him the whole shitstorm, so to speak. Yeah.
So he was kind of the light in the tunnel as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I'm still here. That's how I see it. You know, everything happens for a reason, and I can see that. I can see what gifts have been brought to me by my accident, and then I can also see that I had come to a point in my life when there was really no clear direction. And I remember also asking myself, like, what's the next big thing, next big challenge that's going to come to me? So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly.
And I had a sense that something was going to happen.
You felt it?
Yeah, I felt it. Maybe we know these things on a soul level sometimes. You know?
Can get like the feeling that something is about to happen that's going to change your life completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still feel the sadness? Are these emotions coming sometimes?
I mean, for me, life is about feeling everything, you know, the whole enchilada. And I used my time to explore how this body could move, how it, you know, to the max. And then I'm exploring different perspectives. But of course, sometimes I can feel like I felt when was the spring was coming, and I felt my legs wanted to go out and run, and it was like, oh yes, sweet legs, I understand them. But before I got so bereft, like I was taken away by grief, and that would sort of like almost do a complete shutdown because it's too overwhelming. And now I can more handle the grief and sit with the grief and share the grief, and it doesn't become as devastating. It's a more tender space to open up to it and hold it and listen to it. And I think that's one of the keys. Because when we are experienced, like, or we're in an accident, or we maybe lose a family member or something like that, the grief can, take over. And I mean, that's okay. And we can go into shutdown, or we can go into doing. But it comes to a place where we need to address this, and we need to sit with it and look at it and to deal with it, because otherwise we carry that as a burden inside ourselves. Now I can more carry it like a piece of jewelry or something, and say, okay, this is a part of me. This is a part of my life experience. And it may be painful, but it's also, can I carry that and still do what I feel called to do in this life, in this world? So then I can carry both those perspectives, because otherwise people tend to, either I'm in grief or I'm done healing. And I see more the healing as a lifelong process of holding these different parts and the wounds that we gather throughout our life, which we all have.
Yeah. So it's not really linear. It's like continuous thing that's happening.
Yeah, and that's what I'm also sensing into, because this life is so multidimensional, like the millions and trillions of perspective that we encounter during our lives. And how do we hold that? How do we hold the paradoxes in our lives of maybe grieving and being happy at the same time without feeling shame,
That's hard.
Yeah. Because there's also, I feel, when we do the real grieving, there could be a tenderness in that. And there's a heart, it's alive. When I felt all that grief, there was something in me that felt really alive. But then then we also need to shift, so we don't stay in that, because that can become also like an escape route. Like, I was, this happened to me, and then that story, instead of actually facing and saying, okay, this happened and it's tough shit, but I say yes to life.
So that's becoming like getting into the pattern of a victim. Or I understand that.
Yeah, or especially what I noticed with some people that's been through shit. Some people really do the journey, and some people just like, no, I'm never going to ask for help again. I'm going to do everything by myself. So they really go into a protective part, and they don't feel safe with being vulnerable.
And grief is a lot about being vulnerable.
It is. And because if I'm not vulnerable and I'm sharing with you, I can't receive you, and you don't receive me. Because when we receive each other and we feel seen, there's a part that's so much longing for that can relax and feel like, oh, I'm actually safe in being vulnerable with you.
Yeah. That is. But there's another aspect I would like to ask you about. So you mentioned while this happened, your relationship ended, and I also recall us talking about it, and that many people who you thought were friends, you let them go. Yeah. So I feel in the grief process, there's a lot of letting go, and not only internally, but also externally, because suddenly you become something else.
Yeah. And especially, I think for me, is I needed people in my life that could meet me at that level, that could hold, maybe not hold, but could meet me with my pain not just like this, oh, everything is good, everything is fine. Because that's what I used to be. I used to be a lot in the playful, but now I had a really big need of being seen in what I was in.
Yeah.
Not just like putting a facade, or I just needed to tear that down. And if people couldn't meet me there, or just talking about their jobs or their cars or their, like on a shallow level, I was just not there. It was not my ride anymore. And so I lost, and I think that's what I hear also in the sort of spiritual awakening realm, that you lose a lot of people along the way, and it's a rough ride. And that happened to me. And it took me quite a while before new people showed up. So it was a lonely period, but I think it was very needed. It gave me a lot of time in the forest, a lot of time in the lake, and meditation and reflection, and also exploring Reiki and the honoring, and finding a new tribe, new people that I could resonate with, that I could feel, I could feel that relationship. Because a lot of people they put a mask on, and if you're not that mask that they project on you, they just get scared and they don't want to hang out with you, or they try to put you back into that box whenever they want you.
So I'm just wondering, when did that happen to you, that you realized I'm helping myself and I'm figuring out for myself, but the moment of the wounded healer, like, I'm just wondering, when did that happen in this process?
I remember that I've been sitting with a grief and doing, like, I don't know, I maybe did like 6 hours of meditation a day or something like that, listening to theta waves and doing some really deep inner digging. And I also remember that this sort of Reiki energy or healing energy started coming from my hands, and then I started exploring that with Reiki. And that was sort of it's like, I don't know, it was maybe 6 months or a year after the breakup. I can't remember exactly, but it was this, like, where the light starts shining through, and like the intensity is so great and the weight is so great that I couldn't bear it anymore. So I had to give up and surrender to divine, or that beingness, whatever you call it, the Buddha nature, or whatever name you choose to give it. But that's like being held by something greater. And this life is not just like what I want it to be. It's about me tuning into the guidance that I get. How do I move? What's my purpose? And that's when things really started to shift. Because it's also from that perspective only, really, that I can truly care about other people.
Yeah.
Because then I can say, okay, I can listen, I can feel you, and I can stay in me, but I can also feel, where are you? What's happening in you? And really care about me and care about you at the same time. And then I don't, hopefully, or like with that, then I don't manipulate you to get what I need, hopefully. No. And if I feel those shadows or whatever, I can take responsibility and also express vulnerability, or express, I want to come closer, I want this and that. And then I can also, get taken no, because otherwise, if you're just in your mind and you want to be safe, then I will use every form in my life to get that safety. Yeah. And when I don't get the yes, I don't get the response I want, then I start blocking people. That's basically the cancel culture that we're in today, sadly.
Yeah, but the grief is kind of a tool, or we could say it's a tool to let go of the safety, or the illusion of the safety that you have in your mind. It's so powerful, because there's so much going on. There's anger, there's sadness, there's what if, right? There's a depression as well, because you feel like, oh, I cannot do anything about it. So I feel it is very potent to see things from a totally different perspective, new perspective, and letting go stuff that are not useful for you.
Yeah, and I mean, also to let the grief take you on the ride it needs to take you on through your body. Because otherwise you're going to tend to be like, you can feel the energy up here, but then when you actually slow down and you allow it to feel your heart and to feel those movements there and like, wow, yeah, I'm interested in this. I just don't want to fix it. I want to feel it. And that's the difference. Mm-hmm. And also down into the belly when it's like, it's even beyond words. And to move, both out into the sensory world, but also in the interoception, to feel what's going on. And actually, because otherwise, if we're not used to that, we're going to zoom out or dissociate. Mm-hmm. Because it's, if I feel like rumble in my belly, it's like, oh, I don't feel safe, or it's just hunger. And then it's like, okay, I need to take time and tune into what is this? Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can't sit all day, every day like that, but sometimes you feel you have to do that work. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this kind of stuff, mostly, people are so busy running around that they don't even have time for that. So we need to have a calling to do the work and do the healing work, as we were talking about in these episodes, like intergenerational healing and all that kind of stuff, because otherwise we suppress it and pass it forward.
That's true. And also thinking about now the grief and different dimensions of grief, and how your story is a grief of personal loss in a way, like you lost your own safety, the body that changed after the accident,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, it's, maybe you don't agree with me, but how I see it, the personal grief of that magnitude is totally different from when you lose somebody else. Like, those are two different stories for me, because you're gonna, as you said, this is gonna come back in a different way, with a different intensity, maybe with a little bit more of tenderness, but it comes back in life. Whereas when we grieve a person that we lost, there's a point where there's a total acceptance of that in a way, or maybe that's for me how it worked. But I feel like those are different ways of grieving as well.
I don't know. I think the process in itself is quite alike, but I think, of course, mind body, it reminds me every day, I have to live through
exactly
it. I can't go into denial or just like, okay, I want to run, so I run, and it just doesn't work. That's on a physical level. On a very grounded level, I'm very reminded of my limitations every day. But that's what I mean. Can I still open myself to life and to my experiences and feel both grief and joy and pain? And I mean, in the beginning of a grieving process, or grieving big things like, loss of close ones or accidents, it was also, about this holding, like doing the somatic experience. I think it's like this, and really sensing. So you bring your grief and your healing into your soul, into your body, and really like feel how does it feel to hold myself like this? Because we what we tend is all otherwise to just run away into our minds and try to figure out ways to heal. And then you try to think yourself into healing, and that just doesn't work.
That's the mind.
That's the mind. Yeah.
Not the feeling of it.
So really, this is just caretaking, and also, find friends that you can share with, or therapists, also good. I also went to therapy, but also the somatic practices. And for me, was a part when I also did like breath work every day to open up, because I could feel my body wanted to shut down, and then I needed to open and like do really like breath retentions, like holding your breath and deep breathing to sort of really gently force myself to feel and be and show up in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I was just thinking about what you said and how actually grief is so different still for every person. So like you could look it up somewhere, and there are stages of grief, and this is gonna be like, no, it's never linear. But I feel like every person goes through it differently because there's a different scope maybe in that.
I want to share something how it's been for you.
Yeah, I can do that because well, like more than 2 years ago, actually 2.5, I lost my best friend. And it was a long process because he was sick. He has been sick for many years. But there was no understanding in my mind that this is going to happen anytime soon. And so I was hoping and thinking positive, like, oh, we have so much time still together, you know? And then there was 1 month when I backed off because I felt like, oh, I don't want to invade. Maybe he needs some space. And he said he's with his parents. And yeah, well, he was in the hospital, but now he's back. And I was like, okay, I just give you your space. You know, I hope everything's fine. But what I didn't know is that he didn't want to let me know that he was really dying.
How does that feel in your body right
now? Oh, I got shivers. Yeah. So that was, yeah. That was really, really hard because when I got the message that he's gone, I couldn't believe it. I fell on my knees and I started to cry. And the grieving process was really deep for me because I had a connection, like this was my best friend, you know. And I felt I had to work with that a lot because I felt like I wasn't there for him, that I should have held his hand, that I should have said goodbye. Felt a lot of shame around that I didn't do it.
So shame and guilt.
Guilt, yes, a lot of guilt. And because what happened 2 years before that, I went to the hospital and I saw him and he looked like he was dying. Yeah. And when he woke up and saw me by his side and I was holding his hand, he found hope. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life, you know. I look in the eye and you're here. I'm going to be fine, you know. And he was for some time. So it was a blessing in a way that we could make it work for him buy him some more time. Yeah. But when this happened, I felt like I wasn't there. And maybe if I were, maybe, you know, there's always what if, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How have you worked with that guilt?
Actually worked with some coaching tools.
Yeah.
So which helped me. There's this exercise I did. 2 chairs, and one chair I was me, and the other chair I was him. Yeah. I was having a conversation. Mm-hmm. And that was really one of the turning points of that grief, because I realized it was his decision to not tell me, because he didn't want me to go through that pain with him, because he wanted me to remember him smiling. Yeah. And that was so selfless in a way. And I realized I shouldn't shame myself or feel guilt. Just should accept it because that was his will. Yeah. So I think I cried a lot. I actually cried for more than 1 year a lot because of that. And I didn't have understanding from my ex-partner about it, because after a week of being in a total grief, where like he knew what happened, and then I was still in that grief really deeply, and it was close to my birthday. I didn't want to celebrate. I was like, no, I just really want to feel into this. And the week after, he asked me, where is that? And I was like, oh my God.
We need to give ourselves time to grieve.
Yeah, some people, in fact, when you said that, some people shut off that part. Like, oh, he's gone? Where's the grieving? And I was like, my God,
Yeah.
are we serious?
Yeah.
So it was a long process, but like, I feel like there was anger, there was sadness, there was what if, why didn't we have more time together? Why did he die so young? And then I would also like, work with the spiritual part, where I felt like that was maybe his life or this lifetime. That was it.
Yeah.
He fulfilled it. And I think a lot of like coming to that understanding, but also what helped me, and I don't know I will share that. What helped me is like I had dreams that he would come to me and hold me and hug me and say, everything is okay. I'm fine. Sending me much love. And that was the first night after I got the message that he passed away.
Oh, yeah.
So that was like a little light coming through. But the pain was real, and it took me a long time and work actually to just, accept. Because I think that's the hardest thing, when you have to accept, okay, they're no longer here.
Yeah.
That's it. We have to move on with our lives and just cherish these moments together,
Yeah, cherish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to share one more thing. It reminds me, because it was my best friend that was with me during my climbing accident. He was supposed to secure me, and he failed. And so like 2 years after, I confronted him and said, I'm still angry with you for this, that you didn't secure me. And this is my life situation now. And he just couldn't handle it. It was like, yeah, I understand. Yeah. It's like, I could feel like I couldn't get met. I could get like just a protective part of him. It's like, what it pleased me. Because what I also felt in the grief, I wanted him to sit with me for a while in that.
Feel it.
Yeah, to share it, to sit, and own it together for a while. And he couldn't. And from that, we just drifted apart. So I felt like there is no way forward for me.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been met in this. So that's also part of the grief. Like, can you really be with it? Can you sense the intensity of holding somebody else's grief and feeling the pain within yourself? Like, I remember my sister visiting me at the hospital, and she just started to bawl, crying, like, what happened to you? And for me, that was very hard to manage, because I was crushed. Yeah. And I needed other people to hold me in that, which my ex did in a beautiful way. But because, you need that containment. Yeah. So if you meet somebody that's in a grieving process, just like, try to like feel yourself as a tree, just being in that grounded presence and listen to their story, and just be there with a loving presence.
That story is needed.
Yeah.
I feel that's what happened, exactly like what just said about the tree. Yeah. So that moment I told you, when I saw him 2 years before and he passed away, so I came into the room, I saw him, and I saw that it was bad. And so when I saw that, I didn't wake him up. I stepped out. I cried for 1 hour.
Yeah.
I got it out. I stepped in, and I could be a tree for him. So when he woke up, he saw me with a smile and holding his head.
Man, so yeah. Should we close on that one?
Yeah, I feel like...
Yeah, it's like, be a tree.
Be a tree, and whatever you're going through, like, whatever life throws at you. Because life is like those, summer, spring, autumn, winter. It's winter, sun. Yeah. It's going to change at some point. And just go through it. Sit with it like a tree.
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
That's so great. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here today and listening to the story.
Yeah. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing it.
Yeah.
Mm.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Be well.